Yo, what's going on, everybody? It is Chad. I'm back here with BetHub.com. We're going to be breaking it down conference championship style, AFC and NFC, as it's going down this Sunday, January the 20th. And I know everybody's extremely excited for two phenomenal football games prior to the 2-week break until the final game of the year, which is none other than the Super Bowl. And of course, you guys that are checking out BetHub.com, the link below, enjoy throwing it down on some of these games. And even if you're the most casual fans, how dare you not have a couple of shekels riding on these very extremely important games. So before I break down my opinions and picks here for this weekend, just a bit of a recap in terms of how I've done thus far in the playoffs. Last week with my top 3 selections, I went 1-2, which is a little bit disappointing. My number 1 pick was the Atlanta Falcons, and I did go with the money line. I told you guys that it could come down to last second field goal. They probably should have covered, but we know the way Atlanta sort of fell apart at the end there, but they still got it done. The other picks, Houston, I was dead wrong. Same thing with Green Bay. And the week before that, I went 2-1 with my top picks. So we're rolling at 500. Coming into the playoffs, I was 1 game under 500, so I'm back down there right now. It really has been nothing special at all, but still nonetheless, a strong finish could be in store here for this weekend and in the Super Bowl, which could get me back over that vaunted 500 and winning record, which is what we aim to do every single year that I've been giving you guys picks for the last 4 years. In terms of my opinions, straight up on the games and even my leans to the picks that I don't have, those will be published in the blog on the website as well. So let's get straight down to business here with my top overall selection this weekend, and it's going to be from a total, and it's going to be going over in the San Francisco-Atlanta game, and I get on this now because it's going to continue to tick upwards, and so it should. I've locked and loaded at 48. I think by game time this total closes at around 50. And the reason here that I like the over so much has a lot to do with the way the 49ers have played against other prolific offenses this year. Every single one of those games which have been against Green Bay, New England, and New Orleans have all exceeded 50 points. And in each one of those games, they have scored at least 28 points themselves. San Francisco doesn't come across as the most explosive offensive team in the league, but they're extremely efficient. And when they know they're going up against strong opposing offenses, which is definitely the case in the Atlanta Falcons, especially on their home field, it really creates extra incentive for them to move the ball at a better pace than maybe they would against some division team like St. Louis or Arizona, where they're more grinded out, lower scoring contests. And in particular, when you look at the 49ers on the road, every single game, for the exception of just that one against Minnesota earlier on the year on the road, they've scored 28 plus points. So they've been very efficient on the road. I think playing in the Dome will also help a lot of the speed with their team. You look at what Frank Gore is going to be able to do. He'll be able to run the football. Kaepernick with the option. He's got a big arm, can go downfield to Crabtree, to Randy Moss, Vernon Davis, Delaney Walker up the middle. They got LaMichael James coming out of the backfield. Just so many options here for the San Francisco team to utilize. And it's not like they're going up against some sort of stellar defense that's going to be able to shut them down. Atlanta's ranked 24th overall in defense, and for a good reason. And when you look at this Falcons defense, they really struggle with their linebacker play. And when you have a good running team, and especially with their little dump-off plays over the middle, it's going to create a lot of mismatches and a lot of yak for San Francisco to continue moving the chains. Playing in the Dome will really help them. They had a lot of success when they went to New Orleans, scoring 30-plus points. And Atlanta's a similar type of field, so look for them to get it done there. And I know that a lot of people say it's tough to take it over when you have the San Francisco 49ers defense involved in a game. But we do have the Atlanta Falcons offense, which is still ranked 8th overall and has had their way even against the best of passing defenses, which was Seattle last week as a perfect example. And when you look at them, they've scored 23 plus points in every single game they've had this year on their home field. And I don't think that's going to change here. San Francisco, as good as their defense is, a lot of that's predicated on them being a high-risk, high-reward team. They like to try to create turnovers and be hard-nosed, and sometimes that can work against you, especially when you're going up against arguably the 2 best receivers in Julio Jones, Roddy White, and then Tony Gonzalez thrown into the mix. And their secondary is one area that's been a little bit more suspect than the stout defensive line and linebacking core that they have. So I think Matt Ryan will still have success moving the ball in the air, continuing their trend of scoring 23-plus points every game on their home field. And then also, when you look at just the way these teams match up against each other, it really works well for the over here because of the fact that Atlanta, they're so bad against the run. I think they're ranked 25th in the league, and San Francisco's ranked 4th rushing the football, so that will force them to use what they're known to do best. And San Francisco is way better at stopping the run despite the numbers. You just look at how physical they are. Atlanta, I would consider last week's running, shall we call it rampage, was sort of out from nowhere. It wasn't the norm for this team to get over 150 yards with Turner and Rodgers. I don't see that happening here again. Seattle was very lethargic defensively in the first half. I think that had a lot to do with their scheduling of going back and forth to the coast, and it really cost them in the first half to fall that far behind. The 49ers are in a different spot from a mental standpoint and also a physical standpoint. And this will force them to not even be able to run the football. When that happens, it's going to cause them to throw the ball more, which means there's going to be more shots taken downfield. The clock stops. And if San Francisco takes a lead early in the game, which I do believe is going to be the case, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, to an upcoming pick, then it's going to mean that they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more. I see this game easily being like a 31-24 type of game. At the very lowest, 28-24. Both teams score into the mid-20s. And I don't see any reason why this game does not eclipse this low total, which I think might have some people scared because, like I said, it's the San Francisco defense ranked 4th overall. But a lot of their dominating defensive performances come against inefficient offenses, something that Atlanta clearly is not. So that's why I like for my gold pick there. Rack up those points, sit back and enjoy a high-scoring game for my number 1 overall selection. Now we move on to my silver, my number 2 pick here, and it's going to be in the same football game here. And I do have the San Francisco 49ers minus 3 points right now. This number, when it came out, was 2.5 at minus 125 when I first saw it. Then right when I tried to click it, it said the line has changed. Immediately I went back, it said minus 3, minus 150, and I knew that I had to take that number because it was going to continue to get steamed based on what we saw on the field last week with the dominating San Francisco performance and the not-so-stellar performance in the fourth quarter, almost collapsed by the Atlanta Falcons. And when you think about it from a pure numbers perspective, it makes absolutely no sense to be laying these kind of points here with the 49ers on the road. They're 5-3 on the road this year. Atlanta hasn't lost a game. Under Matt Ryan, they've won 75% of their home games, let alone lost them by more than a field goal. And then you also factor in the fact that this is the first number 1 seed since 1979 to be favored by being underdog by more than a field goal. It's saying a little something about this here. But you know what? I happen to believe that the market is correct here because San Francisco really is that much better. And the predominant reason for that is they will dominate this game in the trenches. And we all know that that's the key element of winning football games. They're so far superior on both the offensive and defensive lines that eventually it's going to wear down this Atlanta football team. And we saw that start to transpire in the second half against Seattle last year. And everything Seattle does from a physical standpoint, San Francisco just does that much better. And Seattle was in a much worse scheduling spot, like I alluded to in the total selection. And San Francisco is going to be a little bit more rested here. They cruise in that second half. They didn't have to play in the wild card weekend. They were at home. It's not as much travel for them. And Harbaugh's done a fantastic job of mental preparation for his team on these big-time road games. A lot of their poor performances on the road, they weren't these prime-time must-win sort of games. And a lot of interesting quotes that I read from the San Francisco 49ers team this week indicate that last year in a similar spot in the conference championship, they weren't quite as mentally prepared. It was sort of like it caught them by storm because the previous years they weren't all that good. This team expects to be here and win. Whereas you look at Atlanta, here's a team that it's almost like the biggest relief of all time. Like they already shot their load by winning that game last week after almost blowing it. So it's almost like their season's being fulfilled and justified that they got that monkey off their back. I think San Francisco has a little bit more to prove here in this spot and is a bit more experienced in this football game here. And I think that they have a little bit more ability to score due to the fact that they can run and throw the football. They can talk all day long that they've seen film on Kaepernick, but we know how atrocious Atlanta's been against mobile quarterbacks similar to Kaepernick. We've seen what Cam Newton's been able to do a couple of times to them, and then Russell Wilson in that second half last week. I mean, that second half, what we saw there is what we're going to see from San Francisco and some the entire game. Now, I know right now these threes aren't available. If you can get it at 3.5, fine, but I really wouldn't go up to 4. There's really not a lot of value in this. I just like it more from an emotional standpoint and from a matchup standpoint here to take the 49ers in this football game. So that's my second overall selection, as the far superior team on both sides of the ball with more experience in a conference championship game will rise to the occasion and make the big clutch plays that are needed when it comes down to it. And also, you have to factor in Harbaugh being that much better of a coach than Mike Smith. He's got more of the aggressive mindset. He's a little bit more creative. Smith, too conservative, too laid back, takes his foot off the gas pedal at the wrong time. I don't like his play calling. Give me those San Francisco 49ers to get to the Super Bowl. And last but not least here, my bronze pick. And it comes from the Baltimore-New England game, of course. That's the only other game out there. And, I did have quite the lean to Baltimore earlier in the week, but I scratched that off just because the scheduling spot I don't think sets up very well for them. I mean, they're just coming off an excruciating game that went into went double overtime. They had to play the week before, emotional with Ray Lewis at home. They went on the road, Denver, mile high, the cold weather, the altitude, then they have to go all the way to New England, and I just feel like there's a possibility they hang around for a while, and New England's offense just proves to be too much, and they could win this game by double digits. Because everything that I talked about last week with Houston having a better defense and being able to contain them clearly wasn't the case, and I'm not convinced Baltimore is a better defensive team than Houston, and they're in a far worse spot here. And then also you have to factor in Bill Belichick in the same season. If he's lost a team, he's very good in a revenge spot ATS and usually does not come up short. Now obviously they could win this game and still not cover the number due to the fact that it's so high. But we do know the stat in football over the last 7 years in the NFL, whoever wins the game straight up covers that number 70% of the time, regardless of what it is. So that sort of has me off of Baltimore. So what does that mean? I'm going to be going with the over here. And, there's many reasons why. And we can first start with the fact that New England averages 35 points a game this year. It's absolutely beast what they've been able to do. Since the first week of the year on their home field, it was the second week, first home game against Arizona, they've scored 28 plus points in every game, and I expect that to continue here. Baltimore is very mediocre, 17th overall in defense this year. This is not the Baltimore defense of old. They've had a lot of injuries this year. The chemistry isn't quite there due to the fact that all their star players like Suggs, Ray Lewis, Reed, and Haloti Ngata haven't been on the field at the same time. And there's no worse team to have that going up against, which is none other than the New England Patriots and their high-flying offense. I don't care that Gronkowski's out. This Patriot offense is absolutely phenomenal because this year they've decided to actually add a running game to the mix, which has made them even more dangerous. We see what Stephen Ridley's capable of doing. We see what Shane Vereen can do. I mean, it just opens up the passing game so much more. And I think that they'd be able to, move the ball at will. We saw Denver do that somewhat last week, and that should continue here. And when you look at the fact that New England is not a great defensive team, they'll be able to give up some points themselves. They're ranked 25th in defense. Yes, they're playing a bit better defensively over the last number of weeks, but Baltimore has enough offense to somewhat keep up here, especially Joe Flacco, who has a big arm and has proven that can make plays down the field, to Torrey Smith, Anquan Bolden with those third down receptions are just beast. Pitta, we've seen Ray Rice rip it up against his team in the past. I really thought this number should be 52, 53, even 54 for the total. I don't see how New England does not score at least 28, if not over 30 points here, and Baltimore finds their way into the 20s. And, it's just the type of game where I can see it in the second half, that Baltimore defense being absolutely gassed and New England just absolutely opening it up, the floodgates, and then that means the defense goes into prevent. Baltimore doesn't stop trying offensively, sort of like we saw last week in Houston. Once they got that big lead, they don't really care defensively. They just let teams march down the field. And the Baltimore offense has enough pride that they're never going to completely give up. So I can easily see Baltimore or New England winning by a touchdown to 10 points. I'm not that confident with the spread. I believe New England still wins this game straight up, no doubt. But I'm more confident in the total here. I see the game being like 34-24, 34-27, somewhere in that range. So those are my three picks. We've got the over in the Atlanta-San Francisco game. We're going to lay the 3.5 points with the 49ers. And we're going to take the over in the New England-Baltimore game. Guys, enjoy this weekend of football, because after that, there's a 2-week break till the Super Bowl. Of course, you're going to come back and check out my prediction for that game. And not only that, I go buck wild with these prop bets. And I know we're going to have some up on BetHub.com. So you guys need to check out the link below. Sign up for an account if you don't have one. If you already have one, fantastic. Make sure to check in to see what kind of bonuses we have going on right now. Get out there, propose some bets, challenge your friends, be obnoxious, make comments, and just get really involved with the communities. We have a lot of great things going on moving forward here. And I know that when it comes to these marquee, high-profile football games, you have to have some money riding on it. Get your shekels out. Get down on these games, even if it's a few bucks. It just adds so much more entertainment to it. So you guys know where to check us out. BetHub.com. Chatham once again signing off. See you guys in a few weeks for Super Bowl time.